How much time do we have?
Oh, now we're live.
Oh, we're live. I was gonna tell you Chris got me some mushroom hunting books for my birthday,
Oh,
and like one about foraging mushrooms that you can cook with, and one that's like a more of a field guide for New England. So we'll have to do a foraging trip.
absolutely. Yeah, Robin's been talking about that soon as things.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Well, we're not here to talk about mushrooms today, even though Julie and I like to hunt mushrooms, wild mushrooms. We're talking about fly tying, believe it or not. It's Monday, and we're here to talk about fly tying. We have Finland and Omaha in the house. And we have Indiana and Central Florida. And where's Roger Bird? Ed's here. Where's your buddy Roger Bird?
Ed's here. Ed's here.
Yeah. Oh, Bob's here from Alberta.
Got a real international show today.
Yeah, California, Connecticut, Michigan. Wow, they're popping in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fly Tying Monday. If you are new, if you've never been on one of these Monday tie-in sessions, welcome. We like to have some fun. Don't be afraid to tease me, and don't be afraid to ask questions if something is unclear or you have any question about what we're doing. Please just go over to the comments and ask a question. If I'm tying. If I'm in the middle of tying, Julia will read out the questions to me, so you can ask them whenever you want.
And, all right, I'm going to scoot out of here and let you take over.
Oh, Julia, don't leave me. Don't leave me alone with all these people.
I've reached my 2-minute on-camera limit.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, there's Roger Bird and Larry Thompson. I see some regulars, and I see some, I think, new people. So welcome if you haven't been on one of these fly tying sessions before. I hope you tie along, because this fly is not very difficult at all, and you really need 3 materials. You need some brown, besides a hook and a thread. You need some brown sparkle yarn or EP fiber. Or whatever color you want, tan. You need some EP fiber for the wing. This one's going to be kind of a medium gray, and you need some dubbing. That's all. And so this is an easy fly to tie. The Sparkle Dun is actually one of my favorite flies, as you can tell. And I use this fly a lot during hatches. I think it's just a deadly fly. It was developed by Craig Matthews and John Jurasek from Blue Ribbon Flies in West Yellowstone, Montana. And the original pattern called for a wing of deer hair, and it's a great fly. The problem with deer hair, problems are numerous. One is that it's a difficult material to work with. Everybody's afraid of working with deer hair, and it's often really difficult to find the right texture and length and color, to some degree, of deer hair. And people have problems with these flies. And this is a variation of the Sparkle Dun that uses EP fiber instead of deer hair for the wing. So you don't need to sort through a whole bunch of deer hair. You don't have to stack the material because you trim it at the end. It seems to work as well as a deer hair Sparkle Dun or Comparadun. Comparadun, difference between a Comparadun and a Sparkle Dun is a Sparkle Dun has a shuck of yarn that looks like the emerging nymph shell that's kind of still stuck onto the mayfly body. And a Comparadun uses split hackle fibers or fibbits for the tails, and that looks like a fully emerged mayfly. So that's the only difference. They're kind of interchangeable. I use them. I use them both. But this the sparkle dun is so much easier to tie. It's so much easier just to tie a hunk of yarn in the end of this thing than to split a couple of little tails. And it just works. It's really it's super durable, and it looks like an emerging mayfly. And it's just deadly. This fly, I almost feel guilty tying this fly because I've spent my whole life trying to perfect the compara dun and the sparkle dun and getting the right deer hair. I have bags and bags of deer hair that I pick from. And this, all I have to do is pull out a couple bags of EP fiber and go to it. It's quicker, it's cheaper, and it's a lot easier, and it seems to work in most situations as well as maybe better than a standard sparkle dun. So anyway, I know that a lot of you struggle with sparkle duns. I get a lot of questions. You struggle with deer hair. So I'm going to show you today an easier way to do it. I'm tying this on a size 18 Bigeye hook, Bigeye dry fly hook. I love that hook. It has an eye that's easier to thread for smaller flies. And it's a light wire hook. It has really good point and bend, and you can easily make it barbless by crushing the barb with your forceps. And I'm using 12-0 thread. I think that 12-0 thread makes a difference here. You want a finer thread to tie this with. You can tie it with a little bit heavier thread with 8-0, and you can tie this thing in nearly any size. I'm tying this to imitate the little blue-wing olives that hatch everywhere in the world early in the season, and then sometimes all through the season, and then again in the fall. And then the neat thing about tying the fly like this is you can, once you tie an 18, you can easily tie a 20, a 22, or even a 24 really without that much problem. If you're tying a 22 or a 24, it's really hard to find deer hair that you can tie in there, and it makes it very, very difficult to handle. But with this fly, you can tie it down as small as you want. It's going to be easy. You have a question there. What is EP fiber? EP fiber is a brand of synthetic fiber. Treg, if you just go on the Orvis website or go online and search on EP fiber, you'll find it. It's EP stands for Enrico Puglisi, who's a great fly tyer who we've had on our fly tying sessions here before, and he makes and sells this fiber. And I see that somebody's used hare's foot for the post. Yep, that'll work as well, Brian. I've done that. I think EP fiber is a little easier to see on the water and a little more durable, and it floats really well. Do you feel that traditional flies are leaning more towards the use of synthetic materials? I don't know, Ed. I think it's both. I mean, most good tires, serious tires have just used whatever they feel is appropriate, whether it's natural or synthetic. And I'm not so sure. Well, certainly we use more synthetics than we did back in the 80s and 90s and in the 70s, 80s, and 90s of the past century. But I don't know if we still use a lot of CDC and pheasant tail and hare's ear fur and things like that. This fly worked as the dry in a dry dropper rig. Roger, you'd have to have a pretty small nymph. This thing is not a super high floater. It's supposed to float in the film. So this is more for fishing a hatch. This is not really a prospecting fly. It's more for a situation where you see fish actually taking emerging mayflies. I have used it as for the dry dropper rig, and I will generally put on an extra amount of EP fiber for the wing, which helps float it in the film. But it's not a great dry dropper. There's lots better patterns. A parachute or a small foam fly would be much better. I think you have fuzz stuck in your beard. Yeah, it could be. I was tying some crab patterns. No, I think it just needs a trim. I don't see any. Julie, you see any fuzz? I don't see any fuzz. It's just fuzz. Fuzz. The fuzz isn't stuck. It's there permanently. Okay. Any other questions before we start? We've listed the pattern there, and you said I got it. I don't know. I didn't see any fuzz come off me, but oh well. Anyway, I was tying some crabs with some McFly foam, and that's pretty fuzzy stuff, and it gets all over the place. There, Dry Fly Fisher has had good luck using a sparkle dun as a dropper, so good. Works for some people. All right, yeah, I was tying green, Brad. There must have been some fuzz in there. I was tying olive crabs. All right, let's get to tying. So I'm starting with. Here's what it's going to look like, and that's a 20, and I tie these in 20s. I find that the little olives that I see are, that's not a Bigeye hook. I gotta go. I pulled the wrong hook out of my box. I gotta find a Bigeye hook in size 18. I don't know what the hell that hook was, but it sure wasn't a Bigeye hook. There's one. You know, this actually looks like I don't know if I have any size 18. This looks like a 20, but that's okay. We'll tie it in a 20. Same thing. As I was saying, I like to tie these in 20s because the fly looks pretty big on the water. These little olives, but actually, I think they're a little smaller when you actually get them in your hand or when you pick one off the water. And so a lot of people fish them in 18s. I tend to tie mine in a size 20 because I find the fish take the 20s regardless. And sometimes they won't take an 18, but they'll always take a 20 when these little olives are on the water. Now, sometimes you'll find smaller ones. Sometimes you'll see other species of olive mayflies that are 22, 24. But generally this time of year in the spring, they're about between an 18 and a 20. So I'm using 12-0 olive thread. You could use brown too or tan. And I'm going to just start my thread up by the eye and cut that off. And then I'm going to come over and get my shuck material. And I like this Trigger Point Supreme. It's really fine. It's EP fiber. It works really well. And it looks good. And I'm gonna just take about a dozen fibers, not that many really. Pull about a dozen fibers off the hank there and trim that. And then I usually wet it like I do a lot of things because it's easier to handle it. Once you wet it, it tends to stay together a little bit better. And I'm going to cut a small piece, just a little piece off that. And I can probably get 8 or 9 flies out of this one length of yarn. And I'm going to give my thread a little counterclockwise spin so it jumps back. And then I'm just going to, I'm going to trim those fibers flush again there a little bit. You want to trim these flush. It just makes it easier to grab them. And wet them. And I'm just going to come and grab that that end, and then just hold the bunch up and a little bit toward you so that as you wind back, it's going to stay on top of the hook shank, go all the way back to the bend. And you've got a long piece there. And I'm just going to snip this a little bit shorter than the hook shank, somewhere around there. That's actually a little shorter than I normally do it, but that's okay. So you just got a little bit of, and this color that I'm using is quite nice. It's called, this particular color is called March Brown, and it's actually got some brown and some tan fibers mixed together, which gives you a nice looking shuck. It really imitates the color and the texture of that shuck that's hanging behind the fly pretty well. You can see those kind of different mixed in colors there. And this is going to drive me crazy.
Tom, Bill has a question.
Yeah.
He's asking if you can explain what you just said about giving the thread a counterclock spin to make it jump back.
Yeah. You can your thread tends to jump forward when you wind. Your thread tends to often jump forward, and by giving it a counterclockwise spin, when you come over the top, it'll jump back, so it'll jump over those materials. So that's all. You just give your bobbin a counterclockwise spin as you're looking down from the top, and then that will make your thread jump back over the material. Just makes it a little easier. It's not absolutely necessary. Any other questions, Julia? No?
Kind of.
Okay.
R2 says, I know you hate these can I use questions, which I don't know if it's true, but they're asking if they can use legal seals for a shuck because they have a bunch in different colors.
I've never used it for a shuck, but I wouldn't waste it on a shuck when you can get a pack of EP fiber. It's more difficult to handle. It's not going to lay down on the shank very well. You could though. Man, you could try it.
Yeah.
It's just, this is so easy and so durable and looks so good. And it has the same kind of sparkle as seal's fur. So I wouldn't waste my seal's fur on this. I'd save it for nymphs and salmon flies, honestly, but
that's great advice.
You could try it. All right.
All right. That's it for now.
Okay. So now I'm going to come forward, and then I can, kind of clean up the butt ends of those things. And I'll come all the way to the eye and then back about a third of the way back from the eye. That's where I'm going to place my wing. And then I'm going to take another color of EP fiber to imitate the wing of the mayfly. And this one is called, you could use normal gray, but this is what they call Supreme Quicksilver trigger point. And it looks like gray and black fibers together. So it's like it's like grizzly hackle or a wing on a hackle on an Adams or something. It's got that kind of mixed coloration, which may possibly make the wing look like it's moving. Sometimes speckled materials seem to give the impression of movement in a fly. So I like this Quicksilver, but you could use just standard gray EP fiber. And I'm going to pull off quite a bit more than I did for the shuck. That's too much. Maybe about a pencil width in diameter. Yeah, it might be a little bit too much. You have to experiment with this. The first one you tie might be Might be a little too heavy or too light. You can just modify that. So now I've got my length of EP fiber for the wing, and I'm going to cut a small piece of it. I would say 1.5 to 2 inches long, like so. And then I'm going to come over to my hook. And you can make this wing fairly sparse if you want. If you're fishing these in fast water, you can tie some of them with almost an oversized wing, because the wing is what you're going to see on the water. That's what sticks up. The wing, I think, is as much for us as it is for the trout. So you can make it a little bit bigger or a little sparser if you wanted to. But I'm going to lay this across the hook shank, and I'm going to cross it over. That's a little bit too long of a piece, but that's okay. I'm kind of wasting it. I'm going to take like 3 turns that way, and then I'm going to pull it and come in behind and make 3 turns here. So what you've got at this point is just like a spinner wing. You've got fiber sticking out of both sides. Kind of hard to see in that angle there. You could see the way it looks. And I just crisscrossed it in the wing there. So quite easy. And then I'm gonna raise this wing up. Just pull it all straight up. That's why you want longer than your finished wing is going to be, so that you can manipulate it. And just come and take about 3 turns of thread around the base of the wing, right around the base. This is called posting the wing. It's the same as you would tie a parachute wing. And then you've got kind of one clump of EP fiber sticking up. Then you're going to trim the wing, and about a shank length, a little higher sometimes, a little less, but I'm gonna do it right here. And maybe I'll go a little higher. Now you got your wing. And you may want to take this and just pull the fibers off to the side. These are going to actually touch the water when the fly sits in the surface film. It's going to touch the water on the edges, and it's going to help it float. Now, what you want to do at this point, you got any fibers that are wayward? You want to trim them out of the way now, because they're going to get in the way. They're going to get in the way when you try to wind your body. So just get rid of them. It's not going to get any better. And the wing can be all kind of one bunch, or it can have a little bit of separation. It just wants something that sticks up like that. I'm going to trim a couple more. Just get them out of there. You get a cleaner wing, and it's going to be less likely to have problems when you dub your body. And then for now, just pull the wing forward and get it out of the way, and come back to the bend. Hold your tail and come right back to where that tail or shuck is. Again, that shuck is a little short. I trimmed it. I got a little over enthusiastic and trimmed it a little too short, but it'll probably still work fine. And you can see in that wing, you can see the kind of the black fiber mixed in with the gray fibers. So it gives it, I think, a little more lifelike look. And that wing is actually kind of far back. So I'm going to see if I can sneak it forward a little bit. Cheating here. Yeah, that's better. I think I've moved it forward a little bit. A little bit. Now for the dubbing. I'm going to change the exposure here a little bit too. There, that's better. And you can use anything for the dubbing. For dry flies, I really like the Spectrablend dry fly dubbing. You can make a really small, tight body with this material. It's a synthetic. It floats really well. It holds fly floating. And the blue-winged olive mayflies are actually kind of a brownish olive body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my some olive dubbing, and then I'm going to take about a quarter to a third as much brown to mix it in, and then I'm just going to work this back and forth until I get the color I want. And I think I got a little bit too much brown in there, so I'm going to come back and get a little bit more olive and add it. You can mix this in a coffee grinder if you want, but this stuff is really easy to work with. So unless you're making a big pile of dubbing, it's probably, and the synthetics don't work as well in a coffee grinder as the natural materials. But that's that kind of brownish olive color that the Baetis or blue-winged olive mayflies have. And then when you dub this stuff, what you want to do is you want to tease off tiny amounts of this. I mean, my first batch of dubbing, I don't think you can even see it there. You want for your first amount of dubbing, you want to barely be able to see that dubbing in your finger. So let's go to the vise. And I'm going to take just a wisp, tiny wisp of this stuff and dub it on there and roll it in one direction only, as tightly as you can wind it. So you can see I barely got any dubbing on there. And then the next bunch, just a little bit more. You don't want much taper on this fly. These flies are pretty skinny. They do build up a little bit at the thorax. And I'm just working down the thread, adding a little bit of dubbing. And you want it just a little bit thicker at the bottom, but not much. You don't want much of a taper in this fly. And you can see that dubbing is let me just raise it up here. You can see that dubbing is really tight. And I hardly used any at all. And then you want to stroke that wing forward to get it out of the way. Hold on to your tail and work back until you get your first turn of dubbing. And then with tight, even turns, I'm going to go forward. When you get to the wing, you want to come underneath a couple times. And then when you get in front, I'm going to push that wing back and come right to the base. And that's going to help flare that wing a little bit. And then finish off with a little bit of a thorax there. And that's it. That's all there is. And you can see that body is small and tight, and Throw a whip finish on there. And a little drop of head cement. And you're done. Now turn this around so you can see it from the front. If I can do it without. And then, well, that's no good. Where the hell did it go? There we go. So now you can see what it looks like from the front. Very, very straightforward, simple fly. And that will balance pretty well with the wing upright on the surface film. However, don't wig out if, whoa, sorry about that. Don't wig out if it falls over, because mayflies fall over lots of times. And in fact, some people actually tie knockdown duns with the wing with the wing only on one side. And those are, they're like a cripple. And so if it falls over, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But the wing will stick up. This thing is going to ride in the surface film, and it'll actually be anchored by the hook below the surface. So that's going to keep it ballasted. And then it's going to kind of ride on the edges of the wings and the body once you put some fly floating on here. And you can use any kind of fly floating on here. You could use paste if you want. You can use a dry desiccant powder, especially once it's caught a couple fish. But any old fly floating will work just fine on this pattern. It's one that you can use with paste. Is there such thing as having your dubbing too tight and having too much of a rope-like segmentation? No, not really. I would say dry fly fisher 11. I would say that the tighter the body, the better it's going to hold up. And mayflies do have some segmentation. So I don't think there's such a thing as too tight unless you want a fuzzy body, in which case it's usually better to wind it tightly and then fuzz it out with a toothbrush or something. The tighter the dubbing, the more durable the fly is going to be. Could you please elaborate why you're not using a natural feather for the tail? Because I think that EP fiber works better for a shuck. It looks more like a shuck than a natural feather, but you could use CDC if you wanted to. And yes, Keith, this pattern is a drowned dun or an emerger, although it works when there's upright wing flies on the water too. But it seems to work for all of them. Chris, no, I'm not sharing my setup for filming. Sorry. That's a trade secret. Is this a pattern that you personally will use for general prospecting for hatches? Brad, I use this more for hatches. I don't use this fly as much for general prospecting, although there is a situation in the summertime where there's a little bit larger olive mayfly on the water here in Vermont in the summertime, in July and August in the morning. Hatches about 10 o'clock in the morning. And they're kind of sparse. They don't hatch in any great numbers, but I do tie one with a kind of a big oversized wing so I can see it for prospecting. But generally this is a hatch. This is a hatch fly. floating to EP wing only if you want body to dangle a bit. No, Michael, the body's going to dangle anyways because there's nothing holding it up. So I would put fly floating on the whole thing because it'll keep it from getting drowned. It'll keep it in the film. So nothing's gonna make this ride anywhere but the film. William asked about videos from my adventures in Chile. Well, William, they're going to be coming out once a week. I don't know what day of the week, but there's 2 of them up there now on the Learning Center. If you go under Tom's Basic Tips on the Orvis Learning Center, there's just put one up this morning, and there'll be one a week. So we're editing kind of as we go. So they're not all done. We've got all the footage, but we're going to edit them. Let's see. Did I miss any questions, Julia? Would you tie this on a clink hammer style hook as well? I don't know, maybe. Tie it on any hook you want, really. I like the Bigeye hook because it's a nice light wire hook. It's strong. It's got a good point, and it's got an oversized eye. So it's easier to thread 6 or even 7X tippet. And if this is a size 20, if you were fishing for larger fish or you're fishing in faster water, you could get a 5X or even a 4X tippet through the eye of this fly. Whereas with a standard hook in size 20, you probably couldn't get 4 or 5X through the eye. So the oversized eye is nice, particularly in the summertime when you're, if you've got warm water temperatures and you want to get those fish in quickly. So you use a little bit heavier tippet. You can put a heavier tippet on these Bigeye hooks. So that's the one I use, but you could put it on any hook you want. I've heard folks tie elk hair caddis with EP fibers. Any plans to go to a demo video? I don't have a pattern for caddis with EP fibers, but I'll play around with some this year and maybe come up with something. Have you tried adding a few CDC fibers to the wing material for the illusion of movement? No, I don't think you need CDC fibers on this particular wing, but you could certainly experiment with that. Might be a good idea. Do you ever use zinc on your flies? No, I don't. Never have used zinc on my flies. I've never used zinc ever in my life. Not that I have anything against it. I don't really know what it is, and have whatever it is, I haven't found a use for it. So no, I haven't used zinc. I find that the Orvis floatants work great, and I haven't had a need to go off the reservation, so to speak, to use different fly floatants. Any other questions? We got done early. Of course, it's a simple fly. So what hook do you use that has a Bigeye hook? Matt, it's called the Orvis Bigeye dry fly hook. Maybe Julia can put a link here on it. And yeah, it's a hook that it's actually a hook that I developed back in the 1990s. There's no reason to have such a fine, such a narrow eye on smaller flies. It adds virtually no weight, and it gives you a lot more real estate when you're trying to thread a 6X tippet through a size 24 fly. So it's a hook we developed a long time ago. Let's see. EP fiber. Can I use EP fibers for the wing? Yeah, I might try that, Scott. might try that. But as I said, I haven't personally done it. My own caddisflies, I usually use rabbit's foot and a little bit of CDC on my own flies, and I may tie one of those. Oh, by the way, I think somebody told me that my fly patterns are now on the Orvis website. I haven't even looked yet, but I think that I gave them 10 or 12 of my personal fly patterns about a year ago, and they're now available commercially. And I thought we might tie some of my own patterns this spring and summer. So I'll throw some in here and there. They're just mainly they're minor variations on patterns you've probably seen before, but might tie some of those. Do you use trigger point Supreme or regular trigger point fibers? I like the Supreme better for wings. Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference is. It seems like the trigger point Supreme has mixed colors and it's a little finer than regular trigger point. So I've been using trigger point Supreme, but honestly, you could use standard EP fibers in gray. You could use, any of those EP fibers I think would work well, but I do like the trigger point Supreme. And again, I don't think it matters that much, but I agree with you, M. Valbano. I think it holds its shape a little bit better. What's the largest size you tie with synthetics before just use deer hair? Yeah. I'd go as big. I'd go as big as a size 12, maybe a 10. I think that once you get, if you're trying to like an Eastern green drake or something, I think that deer hair might be better because I think it's a little lighter when you put when you're putting that much hair on it. But anyway, yeah, I would tie these probably to a size 12, I think. Are you ever going to visit Denmark? I don't know, Christian. There's a lot of places in the world to go, and there's a lot of streams in Vermont that I want to fish. So I don't know if I'll ever get to Denmark, but too many places in too little time, as most of us have that problem. Let's see. Any other questions? For questions, going once, going twice. Here's your chance. We're live now. We won't be in a few minutes. So if you have any questions, fire them away. On whatever topic. Since we scheduled an hour for this. Try this fly with wool. Yeah, you could try it with wool. Yep. Wool's not a bad material. Do you catch any other kind of fish on this fly? I've used it for eyed. Any fish that would eat an insect, if carp or suckers or chub or fall fish are eating insects, it would certainly work for sunfish here in North America. I don't think you need to go to this degree for catching sunfish. They'll eat just about any dry fly you throw out there. But yeah, any fish that'll eat an insect will take this fly, certainly. Where can I get heavy bead chain? I don't know, Randy. I don't know. Would you fish it on a lake? Yes, Mark, absolutely. I'd fish this on a lake if I were any good at fishing lakes, which I'm not. But yeah, it'll work in a lake as well. Can Antron be used instead of EP fibers? Yeah, I think so. I don't think it floats as well. Antron, certainly for the shuck, and sometimes I'll put an Antron shuck on these patterns. But I think that Antron tends to absorb water a little more than EP fiber. So, this fly is going to get wet it's going to get sunk and it's going to get wet. And the EP fiber sheds water so well that one quick false cast will whip all the water off it. So you could use Antron, but I don't think it's going to float quite as well. Okay, everyone. Well, I want to thank you. I hope some of you tied along and came up with your own masterpieces. This fly can be used for any mayfly, Hendricksons, sulfurs, eastern green drakes, western green drakes, any mayfly down to the tiniest trico dun. And I have fished these very small. I've tied some bunch of size 24 and 26 olives for fishing late in the season, and it's easy. So I see the Home Depot, you can get heavy bead chain. Yeah, be careful about bead chain that you get in a Home Depot or something, especially if you're going to use it in salt water, because the bead chain that we use for fly tying is rust resistant. And if you just, I've used standard bead chain before that I've just taken off a light switch, or bead chain that I bought in a hardware store, and it does tend to rust and oxidize. So just be careful. It probably won't last as long as stuff that you buy that's made for fly tying. I have the problem that the fly sometimes hits me in casts. Okay, green thumbs, here's a tip for you. When you finish your cast, drop your elbow. That's all. Don't end up here with your arm way out in front. At the end of your cast, drop your elbow. Don't think about anything else. Just make sure that you drop your elbow. That will often prevent the fly from hitting your leader and your line and your rod and yourself. So try that first. Recommend the amount of backing for an early production CFO3 and Magnolite mult. No, Gulgenfill, I don't have those at the top of my head, those backing capacities. But if you use the chat or call Orvis customer service, call the outfitter line, they'll be able to tell you how much backing you can put on there. I just don't have all those backing capacities memorized. I'm sorry. If I had a Magnolite and want to know how much backing it took, I would call them to find out. So Orvis customer service can help you out there. Yes, Roger, the body colors can be changed to anything your little heart desires. I use these for pale morning duns and sulfurs all the time. So yes, you could change the color to anything you want. Yep. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in this week. I will not be here for the next 2 weeks. So we're not going to have a Monday fly time for the next couple of weeks. I hope you can survive without me. We'll start back up in May. And I haven't even decided what we're going to tie yet. I do know that Tim Flagler and I are going to tie the Green Machine, which is an Atlantic salmon dry fly. So it'll be some deer hair work in May. I think it's the second Monday in May, Julia. Yes, second Monday in May, we'll be tying the Green Machine Atlantic salmon dry fly. I don't know what else we're tying in May. I got to figure that out. Anyway, thank you all, and hope you're getting out there enjoying some of the spring weather and using some of these flies you've tied over the winter. So take it easy, and thanks again.